Today, I want to talk about something that I haven't said out loud in the last 6 years, and that is that I've been grieving for the past 6 years, and I didn't fully understand what was happening to me until almost recently. My mom passed away in 2020 unexpectedly from complications related to COVID, and in the early months of the pandemic. And what makes this loss particular for me is that the years just before her death were some of the most important years of my life. In 2015, when I moved in with her, and for the first time since my early childhood, we got to be close in a way that we hadn't been able to prior to that, because my grandparents raised me pretty much through most of my formative years, and my time with my mother during my own growing up was kind of uneven. So I was in and out of her home in high school, off to college, married before I finished college, and then building a life that took me in many different directions. So those years from 2015 to 2020 were not just a season for me. They were a reconciliation in a lot of ways. It was a late arriving closeness that I had been quietly longing for my entire life. And we were rebuilding what we had not been allowed to fully have before that time. And then she was gone. Since then, something has been hard to name. And it has felt as though some layer of protection was stripped away from me when she passed. And I don't have a better language for it than that right now. And it is not that I'm able to function or haven't been able to. I have run a practice. I've finished a second master's degree. I've shown up for people who depended on me, and I've built things. But there is a particular vulnerability that arrived when she left, and it's not fully gone away. And I guess I'm remembering now because this is the month of her passing. But there's a sense of being more exposed, more tender, more aware of every shift in the world around me. The politics, the social unrest, the economy, the noise, all of it seems to land in my body differently than it would have if she were still here for some reason. At least I feel that way. Because some part of me knew that as long as she was in the world, I felt there was someone whose love for me was simply unconditional. And when that kind of love disappears, even when you are an adult, even when you have built your own life, even when you carry your own authority, something inside you gets a little bit quieter. At least it did for me. And for someone like me, someone the world, at least my world, has often viewed as the strong one, someone who is expected to be the strong one, someone who has believed herself to be the strong one. Admitting any of this out loud feels almost dangerous, or at least scary. But I'm going to say it anyway, because if any part of my story is also your story, then unhealed grief, quietly running your life from the shadows, then you deserve to hear someone name it out loud. So come on inside and let's explore this topic together. I think a lot of people think that grief looks like crying, and it does sometimes. But the kind of grief that settles in and stays for years doesn't usually announce itself. It hides and it disguises itself as kind of like a persistent exhaustion, kind of low grade, that no amount of sleep fixes. It's like a flatness where good things still happen, but they don't feel as bright as they once did. There's an inability to start things that you used to start easily. A loss of interest sometimes in people who once mattered deeply to you. And then sometimes it shows up as a withdrawal from your friendships, your communities, your professional networks, without any clear decision to withdraw. It's like a narrowing of your life down to the absolute essentials, work, family, the things that must be done. And it's a quiet inability to access anything really beyond that. So for 6 years, I did the absolute minimum. I kept my practice running. I finished my degrees. I took care of family matters that needed to be taken care of and showed up for the people who depended on me. And outside of that, though, I almost completely disappeared from my own life, not realizing it. And it didn't happen all at once, didn't happen dramatically. It was slow and it was quiet. It was one unanswered email at a time, one uncalled friend at a time, one missed gathering at a time, and one opportunity that I just quietly let go without realizing it again. I told myself that I was just busy, that I would reach out next month. I told myself that this was a season that would pass very quickly. And what I didn't understand and could not have understood while I was still inside it is that I was grieving. And it wasn't in a sharp, named way that we usually describe grief. Here's where I want to say something specifically about losing a mother, because it is a particular kind of loss that doesn't always get named accurately, I believe. When a mother dies, you lose more than the person. You lose the unconditional witness, depending on your relationship with that person. The one whose love didn't require you to perform, the one, even if your relationship was complicated, even if there were years of distance, or even if it took decades for the two of you to find each other, whose presence in the world was a kind of structural support beneath your own life. When you lose that and you didn't realize that you were leaning on it until it was gone, something happens. And for me, this loss was magnified by what those last 5 years had meant, because we had finally gotten to be close. We had repaired what time and circumstance had kept apart. I had moved home. We were rebuilding what I had needed my entire life. And then she was gone. And so the grief is not only for her absence, the grief is also about the closeness that we had just gained. And the grief is the unfinished conversations. It is the version of myself that I was just becoming in her presence. And the question of who I become now that the person who saw that version is no longer here to witness it, I sometimes question, quite honestly. And if you have lost a mother or anyone whose love felt like that, then you may understand exactly what I'm describing. It carries its own particular type of weight. I want to mention something briefly here because it has shaped this 6-year experience for me, and I suspect it may resonate with some of you. ADHD already operates on what we call out of sight, out of mind. So if a person is not actively in your field, your sphere, so to speak, physically, or on your calendar in your immediate environment, then they can functionally fade from your mental landscape, even when you love them. And when you add grief on top of an ADHD brain, then your bandwidth narrows even further. So relationships don't get neglected on purpose. They don't get prompted. And the brain that is already working overtime to keep you upright. And so I'm not making this video about ADHD, but I do want to name this because if you carry both grief and ADHD, then you may have lost more relationships in your grieving years than you realize. And it's not because you stopped caring. It's not because I stopped caring, even though I have struggled. It is because two patterns, one being emotional and one neurological, combined into something that quietly cost you years of connection. I want to spend a few minutes just talking about what unhealed grief takes from us. It costs you your relationships, the closest, the deepest friendships that often don't survive years of unintended silence, even when the love is still there. It could cost you your professional momentum, opportunities, collaborations, books that could have been written, platforms that could have been built, or networks that could have stayed warm. The energy, that capacity required was being spent elsewhere on simply surviving. So it could also cost you your sense of self, because when you live in survival mode for years, you lose touch with who you actually are. You become someone defined by what you must do rather than who you are becoming. And so your voice gets quieter, your dreams somehow get smaller, and your sense of possibility narrows, at least in my case. It could also cost you time. And this is the heaviest one for me as I think about it and say it out loud, because the 6 years I lost are not coming back. And there's a particular kind of grief that arrives in that in itself, a grief about the grief. When you finally come up for air and realize how much of your life was quietly draining away while you were just trying to stay alive. I'm not telling you this to add weight to whatever you're already carrying. I'm simply saying this because what unhealed grief takes is real. And because I am living proof also that it's not too late to start coming back. I want to name something specifically. For those of us who have been viewed as the strong one, admitting that we have been struggling feels almost dangerous. As I've said before, at least for me, that's the way it feels. When we have been the rock, the capable one, the one others come to, then acknowledging that we have not been okay can feel like a betrayal of an identity that we've spent years building. So we keep going. We perform competence when we don't feel it. We answer the phone with steadiness that we don't have. We hold space for everyone else while quietly bleeding out internally. And we do this for so long that we genuinely lose track of how depleted we actually are. And so if you are the strong one, please hear me on this. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to grieve and allowed space to admit that something inside you has been quietly breaking for a very long time, because strength is not the absence of struggle. It is the willingness to tell the truth about it eventually when it is safe enough for you to do so. As we know, grief doesn't heal on a schedule, so I'm not going to suggest any clear steps here, but I do want to give you 4 invitations based on what I'm learning in my own coming back. The first invitation is to name what you have been grieving, and it's not just the loss itself, it's the losses underneath the loss. So when my mother died, I was grieving her, but I was also grieving the layer of protection that disappeared with her, the relationships that I lost in the silence afterwards, the professional momentum that slowed, the version of myself that I had been becoming in her presence, and the years that I spent on autopilot. All of those are griefs too. And until I named them, I couldn't begin to heal them. So if you're trying to figure this out like I was, you can make a list if it helps. Make a list about what have I lost and not allowed myself to grieve. The naming is the beginning of integration. The second invitation is to reach back towards one person. And you don't need to rebuild your entire network at once, but if you choose one person, send a message, make a call, even if it has been years, even if you don't know what to say. For me, it was as simple as, I know it's been a long time. I've been carrying more than I knew, and I miss you. You may be amazed at how many of those doors are still open. And then the third invitation is to tell the truth about where you've been. When the question comes, where did you go? There's no need to perform. There's no need to pretend. You don't have to explain it away either. You can simply say something like, I was grieving, I didn't know how much, and I am only now starting to come back. The people who love you can hold that. And the truth, spoken out loud, releases something that pretending never could. The fourth invitation is to let yourself be vulnerable in front of the right people. Find one person, a friend, a therapist, a trusted colleague, and let yourself be less than okay in front of them. You don't have to perform anymore. You You don't have to manage everyone's responses, because you can be allowed to put down the weight of being unshakable. And if you discover, as I'm discovering, that the people who love you have been quietly waiting for you to let them in, then simply do that. Let them in. Here's something that I think is worth saying. It's not too late. I'm sitting here enjoying this beautiful beach at almost 60 years old, finally coming up for air after 6 years. And what I'm discovering is that the world didn't erase me while I was gone. The people who loved me are still here. The work that I was meant to be doing is still waiting. The version of myself that grief covered is still alive underneath it and is beginning to find her voice again. And so if you're still inside the grief, then I'm not asking you to come out of it before you are ready. I'm simply suggesting that there is a coming out, and that what feels like permanent darkness is often a long season, but not a found destination. And that the moment you begin to name what you've been carrying, even if you do that quietly or alone, that is the moment that something starts to shift. Your life is still here. The people who love you are still here. You're still here. And it just isn't too late to start the process of healing. If this video found you or you're still inside of grief, then I see you. And if it found you on the way out, I'm walking with you. And if it found you years after and gave you the language to something that you couldn't quite name, then I'm grateful that you're here. Before you go, I want to ask you something. And the question is, what have you been carrying that you have not allowed yourself to fully mourn? And of course, you don't have to share here. You don't have to answer here. But I think it is important that you name it for yourself. And if you feel called to, you can leave one word in the comments. And that word might be mother or father. It might be a career that you're mourning, a friendship, health, or simply years. Whatever it is for you, just one word will do. Thank you again for being on this journey with me and sticking with me to the end of this video. I know it was a long one. And thank you for coming along as we continue to explore possibilities of the heart and mind. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.